Well, our top story, India and China will hold more military and diplomatic talks after the latest round of Lieutenant General level talks ended on Monday with no immediate solution to the standoff in Ladakh. Now, government sources say more meetings are expected both at the military and at the diplomatic level in future to arrive at a mutually agreeable solution and to ensure peace and tranquility along the line of actual control as per bilateral agreements and protocols. Now, this was the third round of talks between the generals after the unprecedented Chinese intrusion in Ladakh. Now, both sides have emphasized the need for an expeditious, phased and stepwise de-escalation as a priority. The statement today is in clear contrast with the statement of the earlier talks on the 22nd of June, which were described as being in a cordial, positive and constructive atmosphere. There was a mutual consensus to disengage. Modalities for disengagement from all friction areas in eastern Ladakh were discussed and will be taken forward by both sides. Now, that was the statement with a great deal of optimism last time around, but this time around the talks were described as having been in a business-like manner, keeping in view the COVID-19 protocols. Well, let's just bring you a quick map to give you an idea of all of the areas where we've seen an incursion by Chinese forces from April onwards. Broadly speaking, Depsang to the north, the Galwan River, Gogra and Hot Springs, and then Pangong Lake to the south. A few other areas have also been mentioned, but these are the main areas where India and China want mutual de-escalation. The question is whether that will actually take place and what shape that disengagement will take. We've got a wonderful set of guests who will be joining us separately tonight. But first, Lieutenant General PJS Pannu, former Corps Commander of 14 Corps in Leh, somebody who knows that entire area extremely well. How important is it, General, for disengagement to be mutual, not a question of China withdrawing just a few camps, a few kilometers or perhaps even less than that, but meaningful disengagement where we get back to what the situation was before April, say in the month of March. Is that what really we need to expect?
Thank you, Vishnu. What you just said obviously has a background. And you have to see that the military buildup started by the PLA. Obviously, a lot of formations moved in the month of April. And it was not that all of a sudden there has been encroachment into the area and there has been violence of the kind that has been reported. But at the same time, there has been a larger buildup which has been observed and noticed all over. The 4 points which you have just shown on the map, obviously, that is where the forces are also seen. And on ground, of course, there are contacts where it appears that the troops are now facing one-on-one, maybe eyeball to eyeball, or maybe very close to it. That situation is there. Having said that, we've had a marathon meeting between the corps commanders, as you said, in a very business-like manner. Normally, when in the other normal times, from a shake hand, you can actually read a lot of body language. You also then sit across and, sometimes over a cup of tea or coffee, the body languages can be very different. The fact is that you're calling it business-like. It obviously means that both sides have come together with some kind of very tight agenda. And there is not going to be any general talk of goodness, but a very nuanced talk on how the situation has to be brought under control by the military commanders themselves, who are under command, with who they have the command of troops with them. Having said that, if the Chinese have agreed, as I understand, to withdraw in a timetable, there has to be a verification, because you cannot have a situation where the Chinese have said something on ground, and something else is happening with the junior leaders executing something which is not trustworthy. And precisely that is how both sides, had a violence that has been reported.
General, let me ask you this.
Yeah, okay.
Have you, when you were corps commander in Leh, been part of these talks, either in Moldo and Chushul yourself?
No. we never had these talks at the co-commander level. This time is the first time that the co-commanders have started talking. We had maximum major general level talks, which used to be held at that time.
Okay.
And what happens on ground, obviously, is known that both sides meet. And, when you talk about a general suspicion, I have observed, when a Chinese laughs, a laughing Chinese has something up his sleeve. I never trusted a laughing Chinese, with all the smile and whatever, body language. They bring in something which is completely unacceptable. And on ground, when you meet troop to troop and there is a friction and Chinese get very angry, mostly I've noticed that they would be very scared when they get angry because, they really want to avoid a confrontation. But from behind, these leaders are pushing them to, push their shoulders against the Indian troops. And that is how the face-offs have been happening. But today, the situation is tense for the simple reason that a number of places the Chinese have come and they are actually having a face-off of now number of days that they have been together in that. And they have also occupied additional areas. When you talk about Galwan Valley, obviously there is a build-up in the Galwan Valley and up to PP 14. There has been indication that the troops are there on ground. They haven't moved back. Similarly, at PP 15 and 17A, where you talk about Gogra and Hot Spring areas, and right up to Pagongso and the ridge lines, moving above toward the Chengmo ranges, they have also gone in for some certain deployments. So each of these friction points have got different peculiarity. And therefore, every point will have to be dealt with differently by pushing the troops on ground, by verification on ground. But what it appears to me is some amount of movement has happened on ground, which is not very significant, but the build-up is still continuing. You see, look at this situation where the troops are making some kind of a pseudo movement of pulling back, and then the build-up continues to happen.
Okay, General, let me just come in and ask you a quick question.
Situation. Yeah.
Sure. General, I know we are in the middle of a standoff now. In fact, our sources actually telling us, government sources, and we've quoted them, the word that they were using is face-off. And that was not what we were talking about in terms of what was there a few months ago. But there is now this open recognition that, look, let's face it, it is a face-off. Let's refer to it as that. But my question is this, sir. At what stage do we get serious about trying to figure out how the Chinese came in with the numbers and the strength that they came in with, made incursions in our territory? Did we just sit and watch them? Is there not going to be some process of accountability at whatever level it may be?
Such things have happened in the past also. The troops on ground really see them because when we also move into the areas which are along the line of our own perception and they come up to the lines of own perception, the meeting engagements have happened in the past also. So in similar manner, the troops, as I believe, at PP 14 were seen to have come in and the patrol had spotted the tent, and that is how the whole process of trying to, pass a hotline message and bring in the commanders to talk, and obviously the escalation happened for the commanders to talk.
Right.
Similarly, at Pagongso Lake also, the movement happened, the boats also, I believe came in, and at Finger 4, they have been coming earlier, but they've been going back. And similarly, we have also been going up to Finger 8 and beyond between Finger 5 and Finger 8, many times we've also had a face-off. So this kind of a thing has happened, but now there is some amount of fixation which has happened where neither are we going ahead nor are they going ahead. There is a face-off where both troops are almost eyeball to eyeball. They cannot
absolutely, and that raises an entire set of concerns. General, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us, because I'm also joined at this stage by Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, member of the National Security Advisory Board, and an old hand and an expert hand at China, and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash. Thank you both very much for being with us. Admiral Prakash, I beg your pardon, Mr. Prakash, Ambassador Prakash, given the fact that we haven't seen the Chinese respecting us in having disengaged thus far, is there any reason to believe confidently that they will do so now?
Not at all, zero. But we have to try it out. We have to keep engaged. We have to remain engaged. We cannot let our guards down. We should continue to impose costs on China. At the same time, there is no choice but to engage. That's a fact of geography. China is going to be there. And if we can find a modus vivendi, if they go back peacefully, if the status quo ante can be attained, nothing like that.
Why do you believe, Ambassador, that they won't disengage, or they cannot be expected to disengage? Is it because of where they are presently, or is it because they have a larger strategic game plan at this stage?
Well, they have not come there for a picnic, and the timing is significant. They have thrown out of the window 35 years of CBMs. All agreements have been violated. We have had bloodshed at the border. I have no inside information. I'm going by purely media reports. There is a troop buildup is continuing on their side. Whatever arrangements or whatever has been agreed to between the armed forces, and that too at a lieutenant general level, which, as the other panelists were saying, is for the first time. There does not seem to be much happening around, and China is notorious for taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Vishnu, if I can remind you of what the Chinese ambassador said, and perhaps the Chinese spokesperson also said, is meet us halfway. I mean, can you imagine if India had escalated, if India had been responsible, do you think that they are so magnanimous as to that they will meet us halfway? No, I do not accept that. They are out with an agenda. Question is whether we can push back. We are quite determined that we are left with no choice but to stand our ground and let them understand that it cannot be business as usual. That we are no walkover.
Right, General Narasimhan, is it time for India to more assertively state or express that we are no pushover? Yes, we are taking these moves on the economic front, the banning of apps, this, that and the other. But do we have options on the table from a military standpoint which we would perhaps be looking at more closely now than, say, a few weeks back?
Vishnu, it's absolutely correct what you're saying. The issue is that I've also mentioned earlier in your show that we should keep the military option as the last option. That does not mean the contingencies are not being worked out. I'm sure the contingencies and the options below the military level which our armed forces can take are also would have been worked out. There are a number of options. There are a number of contingencies that we can work on. I'm sure those things are being worked out by the Army headquarters and the armed forces put together.
General, let me ask you this, and I know obviously neither you nor I can get into specifics, and because it gets into that classified arena. But as a general, as a former general of the Indian Army, somebody who works closely with the government now, would it be fair to say that the Indian Army is fully capable of handling this situation from a military standpoint? It's a broad question, sir.
It's absolutely a good question, and I stand by what I said earlier, that Indian armed forces are very professional. We have said, even Ambassador Prakash and the previous panelists have mentioned, we have made our own counter build-up to whatever build-up the Chinese armed forces are taking place. If push comes to shove, Indian armed forces are very capable of handling whatever situation that they have to face. We need to go back and think about what happened in the other face-off that we had. We also have to go back and think how the Indian Army performed in 1999. I am sure we will be able to stand up to whatever tasks that are given to us, and we will be able to face that.
Ambassador Prakash, do you believe that the steps taken by the government in hitting out at the Chinese economically, not just the apps, but no Chinese presence, says no new Chinese presence in MSMEs, no new Chinese presence in highway projects, that is a message which they would perhaps learn the hard way fast and quickly, because the core of their game plan strategically has been economic development within their country and to spread that outwards as well?
Absolutely, that is, as it's very well known, there is a social compact in China which could be fraying if Chinese cannot get their economic act right, and BRI was a manifestation of that. But what we see is only a beginning. India is not going to play into Chinese hands by acting in a hurry. We are a responsible nation. We are taking, as far as I can see it, measured steps, calibrated steps. We'll escalate them as required. We have, I think, in our toolkit, we have a number of economic measures, political measures, diplomatic measures that can be taken, and we will take them, because it has to be made very clear to China that, it is not business as usual. B, such misadventure cannot be cost-free. You agree on something, you go back on that, you choose your time, you violate all agreed norms and protocols. This is just not done.
Yeah. General, last question to you. There's the factor of weather as well. Winter is going to be upon us in a few months. That area is one of the most inhospitable on earth. That being the case, would it be fair to assume that the Chinese holding on to many of those areas in winter would be militarily very difficult, if not impossible, and that even if this stretches, then there could well be a lull in winter?
Till some time ago, I used to believe that the Himalayan mountains are a real barrier, and they used to have the kind of winter breaks you can have it. But as time has passed by, and my experience on serving on the borders is that we should be prepared to even be careful during the winter seasons, and that we are capable of doing it. We have been living in those areas. We have been maintaining ourselves. See, for example, how we have managed Siachen. We will be very much there, even if in case it extends into the winter. I only hope it doesn't go into the winter. And to some extent, I would also feel that even the Chinese would stay on in case this disengagement process doesn't go on in the way it has been planned. I only hope the disengagement process goes as per the plans and everything gets back to normal before the winters. Otherwise, we should be prepared, and we are prepared for a winter haul.
General Narasimhan and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, thank you both very much for joining us this evening.